Good evening, everybody. And as indicated, my name is Gilbert Moore, and I'm with the Department of Justice, Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, specifically the Police Practice and Accountability Unit. And I emphasize that because we are a unit within the Department of Justice that works to provide resources and assessments and other forms of technical assistance to state and local law enforcement agencies across the country. And it is encouraging to see everybody here. We are grateful for your attendance. We know that on a Wednesday evening, as you're moving about trying to do those things that regular people do on a daily basis, you're making a contribution to come and to contribute to our assessment of the Memphis Police Department as a part of this listening session is something that represents a personal sacrifice, so we are in fact grateful. To my right is George Faulkner. As indicated, George is the federal lead for this project. George is actually also a member of the U.S. Department of Justice COPS Office, and he is the person who, again, is the primary point of contact for the program and somebody who will be in and around Memphis consistently over the next 18 months to 2 years. He's already gotten to know all the best barbecue places in town. And so I think we're making a lot of progress, not just with that, but also with the information and the feedback that we have been getting from people throughout the city. Community policing begins with a commitment to building trust and mutual respect between police and communities. It's critical to public safety. You know, when we ensure that stakeholders and law enforcement can work together in a collective, collaborative mode, we recognize that public safety will be enhanced. We're grateful again for the opportunity to come and to hear from all of you. I think I should emphasize that this is an effort that the Memphis Police Department voluntarily asked the Department of Justice to support them on, to come in and provide any alternate perspectives on the types of services that they are providing to the citizens of Memphis. And that is something that I think bodes well for the ability of the police department and Memphis as a whole to make progress and to transform law enforcement services that are in need of attention. Last month, we entered into this again voluntarily with the police department, and this is the first step in a broader assessment where we determine exactly what is going to happen, what things are going to be looked at, and then we move forward from there with issuing a range of public recommendations. One thing that I should make clear is that the focus of the collaborative reform effort and the activities and the operations that are a part of our assessment of the police department are not the same thing as a civil rights consent decree process. A civil rights investigation is backed by enforcement authority and has the potential to result in court-ordered mandates to fix the issues that are identified. So that is not the same thing as what we are doing. Again, ours is a voluntary process that the police department undertakes because they themselves identify an interest in making gains in how they provide services to the citizens that they police. So our work, though, does not preclude an investigation by the Civil Rights Division. In fact, we coordinate with the Civil Rights Division when we decide what cases we're going to be taking on, and we consulted with the Civil Rights Division before taking on Memphis. So again, the collaborative reform process does not have enforcement authority, but what we do have is the court of public opinion. What we do have is the willingness of the Memphis Police Department to take a critical look at how they are serving all of you, and we have the benefit of an array of law enforcement and community policing experts that are on this task that are here at this table. So with that said, I want to pass it on to George Faulkner so he can kind of provide you information from his respective perch.
Thanks, Gil, and good evening to everyone here. I echo Gil's gratitude for everyone taking their time out of their evening and their day to get here, and some of you probably fought through some rush hour traffic to be here, and I expect more people to be coming in. Oh, sorry, can you hear me now? Okay. So I'll describe the collaborative reform process at the middle of now, in the initiation phase, and that's we've decided to work with MPD collaboratively in the community to develop reforms that would benefit everybody. This listening session and the listening session we had last night and the interviews and conversations we're having with members of the police department are going to help us form a set of informed objectives. What the objectives are they determine, or they'll drive exactly what issues we'll be looking at further over the next 8 to 10 months in an in-depth assessment. That's the next phase, the assessment phase, and it's what we're really priming ourselves for now. The assessment phase will involve more community forums. Some of them might be private, maybe some more will be public. We'll be reaching out to individuals and to organizations to continue to gain not only perspective, but also ideas for what are some solutions and reforms, again, that would most benefit Memphians and the Memphis Police Department. We'll be working with the department to collect data, documents, files. We'll observe some of their operations in real time, their training, and we'll also review policies and procedures. At the end of that, and that should be an 8 to 10 month process, possibly spanning up to 12 months, we'll produce a public report. That report will, again, detail findings and recommendations. It'll detail our assessment, and it will be made public, and we'll be back here to talk with you all and members of the community about what the report says and where we go from there. And where we go from there would be another 18 months of monitoring and implementation and progress reporting. At that point, we'll be helping the police department implement recommendations, providing resources, training, technical assistance, continued consultation, policy review, data review, to help the department implement those reforms that we've recommended in the final report. We'll have 2 progress reports from there. One will be 6 months after the assessment report, and then another one will be at the very end of the collaborative reform period, which would be 18 months after the assessment report. So I'd just like to close by saying one thing that's very important to us in all of our collaborative reform efforts, and we're in I think 14 or 15 sites by now we've worked with, is that you will see your voice in our work, and we'll be addressing your concerns. So this community listening session, what we had yesterday and what we'll continue to work with the community on is just an integral part of this process. And again, our goal in this is to help you, or help us, determine what we will be assessing with the police department and how we could best improve. So tonight's listening session is just one method, but it's a very important one. So we're grateful that you're here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Michael Durden.
My name is Stacy Spencer. I'm a senior pastor of a church here in the Hickory community. And about a year ago, we had a young man that was shot, 19-year-old, that was murdered on our church property by Officer Schilling. His name was Darius Stewart, and it was on my church property, my youth campus, and it was really disturbing because of how it happened. The Attorney General, Amy Wyrick, decided that there was enough evidence to push for him to be tried, to be indicted. However, when they went to the grand jury, they dismissed it. There was really a lot of unanswered questions because of the procedure and how he pulled over a group of young black men in a car. As Ms. Helen Collins said, they had reason to be pulled over, the tail light was out. However, that led to them searching, looking at the IDs and found out there was an outstanding warrant for Darius Stewart, allegedly. And when he tried to handcuff the young man, there was a scuffle. Darius Stewart ran away from the police officer, and he was shot running away, and subsequently killed. There was not a lot of transparency with the information concerning the shooting. It took a lot of time before we actually found out what the report entailed. It took months. We waited for months before we got any information. And it was only by the grace of God that we didn't have a Ferguson situation where the city erupted. but there was still a lot of disappointment and mistrust that began to build between the community and the police department. Some of the things that I would hope that would come out of your process of reform is that we would look at processes and procedures for pulling over young men. I know that there are times when police officers have to do their job, and we expect them to do their jobs to keep all of us safe. But we also want to talk about processes of de-escalating conflict and confrontation. I believe that there were some procedures that were broken when they pulled him over. He was supposed to call for backup. There was no backup, no other police officer there to witness the altercation. The witnesses were able to give some accounts of what they saw in terms of how the situation was handled or mishandled. We were very disappointed with the outcome. There's a lawsuit right now against the city and against the police department, I believe, concerning Darius Stewart from his family because they feel like justice was not served. I believe that justice was not served. On the other side of the coin, as Ms. Helen has mentioned, I think we have a great police director now in Director Rawlings. I'm very pleased in how he handled the bridge situation. We had protests concerning young people who felt like there was not enough justice being served from our police department. So there's some good and some bad, as it is with any police department. But lack of transparency, de-escalation when there is a time of arrest, and then thirdly, the whole concept of community policing is very much encouraging for me, because I think instead of having a militarized police force that just comes to occupy neighborhoods and kind of have a militarized presence, I think that's counterproductive to building community. I'm really encouraged that we can build some kind of relationship between the community and the police so that they're actually protecting and serving the community and working with the community to keep the community safe. So I'm glad that you all are here, and I'm hoping that out of this process that there will be some accountability with our officers and also a connection to the community.
Good afternoon. My name is Malcolm Farrell-Kill. I'm a resident of Birmingham, Alabama, but I was raised up here. I thought I would come and tell you about an experience that I had here because it flows into the systems that are here. On September 12th, I was at my mother's house doing some repairs, which is outside of the Memphis city limits. Doorbell rang. I look out, I have 4 cars of Memphis police in my yard. One of them comes, he asks me my name, and he tells me he's looking for a female with the same surname. I told him I had no idea who he was talking about. That's when the verbal abuse started. You know, it became, you're a liar, you're a damn liar. It goes on and on. So I come outside. They proceed to hold me prisoner for an hour there. They're going to make me know this person. They're going to make me tell them where she is. And the situation just escalates and escalates. I then see how people get killed because they were trying to just make this into some huge thing. It was 4 officers, 3 were black, 1 was white. That means something, I'll tell you in a minute. But they were just escalating and escalating. Then they wanted to get in the house. So they have a technique. They threaten your life. I know she's there. You're hiding her. You got her in the house. You're going to bring her out. You're not going to get away from here. This goes on and on. So about an hour, finally, the white officer, he comes up to me, gets in my face. I smell his bad breath. And he tells me, he said, you're not telling us what we want to hear. You going to tell us what we want to hear, or you're not going to leave. I told him, I said, why are y'all in my face? If you don't want me in your face, back off. You back off. So then I said, why are you being so aggressive? And then that's when he told me, you ain't seen what aggressive is. He said, when we get through with you, you're going to know what aggressive is. That's when I decided I was going to lose my life, so just to get out of the situation. So they had me, both my vehicles blocked in, so I just closed my house up, turned the alarm on, got out. So they let me part of the way out, so then they blocked me again. Wouldn't let me out of my yard, so made me show them some ID. I guess they decided they had to let me go. Okay, here's where the system goes from here. I call internal affairs. Internal affairs basically doesn't want to do anything. They don't even want to take a report. I said, I had 4 Memphis police in the county. They just tried to kill me. Oh, they weren't going to kill you. You know, that's what we call leaning on you. They was just leaning on you. I said, they assaulted me. Well, give us the information and we'll keep it on record. I said, no, I'm calling to file a complaint. You know, if you're going to file a complaint, I need all their names. I need their badge numbers. I need their car numbers. So I was frustrated at this, and I figured my security cameras had picked some up. So I called him back about 30 minutes. I said, I told him, I said, you got 4 cars, Memphis police in the county, and you're telling me you can't find out who they are? He said, be like finding a needle in a haystack. This was Detective Newton, a needle in a haystack. So I called him back later. I said, well, if I give you their pictures, will you be able to tell? Well, yeah, bring us that, we'll put that on file. I said, I want a complaint. So they're trying to just send you away. So after that, I called the TBI office. You call them, they say, there's nothing we can do. That has to go through the district attorney's office. I called the district attorney's office. The district attorney says, no, we won't do anything until after the complaint. And I went the next day and filed a complaint. So it kind of made me think it's sort of like somebody being sexually assaulted, and then they tell you, well, you know, you got to call their family and negotiate something with the family. So I haven't been to the district attorney's office. This is still out there since September. It just kind of goes into a hole. So this is, and I don't want to carry on and make it, we can talk more about it later, but the system does not work.
The police department, they've always been right at my door when I needed them. They've always been very, what do I need to do with this? Oh, right there, okay. They've always been very courteous, very kind to me, and I appreciate them, truly appreciate them. But I spend a lot of time at home, and things have begun to bother me about the Memphis Police Department. And I would really hope that while you're here, you would examine the recruitment policy, because they seem to be recruiting, and not just the Memphis Police Department, but police departments in general, from the KKK and the white supremacy group.
Wow. Yes.
What?
Yes, no, just keep going.
Okay. And it's the viciousness and the meanness and the vindictiveness seem to be pervasive now. And the good that the police do, and they do good, the good that they do is overshadowed by all this killing. And it's needless killing. I was listening to the television today with that Attorney General in North Carolina, I think. And he was talking about them shooting this man who got out of his truck and supposedly had a gun. This man, they were there on a totally different thing. They were undercover. And they saw him put out a cigarette and fill it with marijuana. And they decided that, okay, they weren't going to bother with the marijuana because that would interfere with their undercover operation. Well and good. But then the cop saw, he said, oh, he's got a gun. Well, this is a black man with a gun and marijuana. It's everybody and his little brother and his cousin has a gun. Does the gun law just apply to white people? I mean, the man was not in no way was he paying any attention to the police. He wasn't interfering with them. He wasn't looking at them. He wasn't having anything to do with them. He went about his business. They are the ones that incited that whole thing. They made a big to-do out of nothing. And that seems to be what's going on in a lot of places. And I would ask you, please, to look into the recruitment policy and the human resource vetting that goes on of applicants to the police department. And I would also ask you, please, to look into the education and training of police officers, because while they're really good at shooting people, they don't seem to be too good at de-escalating a situation or trying to make it better or even-handed or nice. I guess is a good word and probably a simple, stupid word, but they don't get, nothing has to be all the time ugly. You don't have to escalate everything. And it seems like that's what they enjoy doing most. And I really wish you would look into that, because they need to be educated. These people, we are not the enemy. You have all this war material that has been given to police departments. And along with all this war material seems to become war training. And we are not the enemy. We are the people. The police are supposed to serve and protect, not fight, not kill, not harass. And I just am really hopeful that while you're here, you'll look at these practices, because I think I've not heard anything or read anything in our paper about the practice that was done in Ferguson, where the city was being supported on the backs of the black people with the fines and the traffic things and all this, and they can never get out of debt. I think there's some of that going on here too. I hope you look at that. But we could be so good. This could be such a good place to live. And I hope while you're here, you'll look into all these things and make them better. Please make them better. Please make them better.
Wow.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for those comments. My name is Mark Coleman, Reverend Coleman. To piggyback on on the response that she just made, and also on Reverend Spencer, Stacey Spencer. There's been a problem around here, Black Lives Matter and so on. Now, it has come to the point now whereas not only Black Lives Matter, they are fighting back now, not police lives matter. And one thing that I feel that needs to take place from the federal point of view is, number one, when a policeman approaches someone, they need to come off this instance of shoot to kill. I mean, all these lives that have happened in the past year, it's been more than one bullet. Several times, several shots in the heart, several shots in the head. It don't take that much to stop somebody from even going at their guns. Now, if we teach the policeman how to stop the shoot to kill, but shoot to wound, shoot in the leg or something, maybe we'll have less crime, less of problems with what's going on with police getting killed, black men getting killed. We need to come up with some type of method of communication between police and citizens. And also, when they come to that point, before they shoot to kill, try to talk it out, or like I said, shoot to wound. Let's stop all this shoot to killing. And when they come, because when they come up to be sentenced for it, they are found not guilty anyway. And that makes us more angry. So we need to come up with some type of rules and regulations on police. First of all, the ones who are doing the killing, that's not their first instance. So after their first instance, they should be going through some type of training again to see why they used this kind of possession when they reacted. But the same policemen that are doing the killing are the same ones over and over, and they're getting a second chance. We need to do something about the training, like someone said, and also we need to do something about how do we go about approaching citizens, and let's not kill, thou shalt not kill. Let's stop killing, and let's wound. Let's give them a chance to give their opinion on what happened. A dead person can't talk. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. My name is Brad Watkins, Mid-South Peace and Justice Center. I want to, as briefly as I can, take you sequentially through, as the gentleman said earlier, the systemic problem of accountability. And that is, I'll start in 2008 with the beating of Joanna Johnson, who was a woman in police custody, who was savagely beaten. And that was on television for all this city to see. There was very little consequences for those officers. This prompted City Councilwoman Janice Fuller-Love in 2008 to call for an audit of internal affairs in the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board. What that report said is that every citizen of Memphis has the right to file a complaint at Internal Affairs or at any MPD precinct, by phone, by fax, by email, in person, or by an emergency hotline. 24/7. None of those things actually exist outside the realm of policy, except if you as an individual go to the precinct where the officer works that you have a complaint against, or you go to Internal Affairs. Further, the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board had been quietly disbanded and didn't exist for about a good 5 years till we pushed to get it back passed. And that was at every step of the way opposition, publicly and privately, from the leadership of the Memphis Police Department and the Memphis Police Association. In fact, at every step when the citizens propose some sort of reform or change, it is met with direct opposition from the leadership of the department and the union. Moving forward with the complaint process, we helped several people who had their rights violated, people experiencing homelessness, who were arrested for standing on a sidewalk, which is technically illegal in the city of Memphis, obstruction of highway or passageway. So for filming the officer for illegally arresting someone, they were arrested for obstruction of a highway or passageway. This is a very common charge you will find that is used against people experiencing homelessness. When we filed a complaint, we went to the precinct and gathered everybody up, filed their complaints at the precinct, and waited, and waited, and waited. After a month and a half of waiting, we called back and they told us it had been transferred to Internal Affairs, and Internal Affairs had dropped the case because we never came in to our appointment. We didn't come to our appointment because no one had made us aware it had been moved to Internal Affairs. So then we had to gather everyone back up, go to Internal Affairs where you're only allowed to go in alone, regardless of whether or not you're someone with a PTSD issue who may be afraid of people in uniform, and give that statement. Our statements then came back to us with a lot of errors in it in the transcripts. Then it was kicked back to the precinct, and then back to Internal Affairs, where we basically had to start the process all over again 4 months later. Also, according to that audit that was given to the Memphis City Council, there is no review or accurate data on what happens to the dispensation of cases that are handled on the precinct level. There are only accurate records of what happens when a person goes to Internal Affairs. The fact is, though, most people don't know where Internal Affairs is located because it's not located at the criminal justice system. It's not located at MPD building. It's located down on Union Extended and in an office building with several other things at various branches of government. So when you file that complaint, then we didn't hear back about the dispensation of our complaint for another 6 months. We finally received a post-dated letter that was a month behind that only told us that the charges were unsustained. It gave us no details about why they did not sustain the charges. It gave us no information. All it said was, you can refer this to the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board, which again, I'll remind you, did not exist between 2011 and 2014. So then, for a citizen to then follow up on that case, the citizen would have to, one, go down to City Hall, to the legal department, in some cases pay to get the printed copy of the officer's entire personnel file, even though you're only looking for one part of it. Then you'd have to go to Internal Affairs and get the Internal Affairs file of that investigation. And then you'd have to piece that together for yourself before you actually see the transcripts of what's happening, because citizens aren't allowed to be at the hearing where MPD decides whether or not that officer is disciplined. So when we talk about healing the relationship between the community and MPD has to, one, stop resisting and being hyper-defensive every time the community talks about reform. And two, they have to have a process that's so much more easy to navigate. The only reason why we were able to navigate this is because my job allows me to do that. But a lot of regular people working 9 to 5 don't have time to go back and forth to this place or that place, calling this person or that person. I was on hold for 2 hours from person to person, and finally when I got to someone, the person who put me on hold had left for the day. So people, you got to understand, people aren't out here looking to dislike or hate or hostility towards the department, but they feel like every time they have a complaint, it's treated with hostility, hyper-defensiveness, and dismissiveness. So I really want us to look into the systemic causes, and a structure like that, which prevents accountability, is one of them. Thank y'all.
My name is Elias Price, and I live in Hickory Hill. My encounter with the police department is very minimal, and I'm glad to be able to say that. But the few times that I have encountered them, I've been treated very harshly. I spent 21 years in the Marines, and I'm used to being respected. They speak to me out of turn. They talk real harsh. They stop me for a ticket. I ask them what was the ticket for. Give me your driver's license. I'll tell you later. So, with that being said, I didn't know what to do. So I went to court because I wanted to contest the fine. When I got to court, I told the judge that I didn't think that I was being treated right and I didn't commit the crime. She wanted to know if I wanted to plead not guilty or go ahead and pay the fine. Well, I'm really not that familiar with the civilian court system either. So I just wanted to put the man on report. I had no problem with the ticket. Asked him what route should I take. Nobody was able to tell me where I would go with my complaint. Nobody gave me no documentation. Nobody gave me no information to forward my case. I went home upset, sure not to have to deal with the police no more. 3 to 6 months later, I get stopped again, same type attitude, like I had committed a crime when all I was doing was being stopped. And the attitude was, why are you being so harsh, man? I ain't done nothing. Just give me your stuff. After I give him all of my paperwork and everything, he gives me my ticket, goes about his business. I go to court again. Same story happened again. This is not the forum for that. But where is the forum? You have to speak to someone else. End of line. They need to have an open policy, some kind of means that you can make a phone call to report wrong actions by the police. And then when you do have that, there needs to be some kind of follow-up back to the person that's making the complaints, so that they'll know that somebody paid attention to what they had to say. I'm speaking for the majority of the people that are not here, that aren't going to come here, because when they see the police, fear comes before anything else. And now that everybody wants to be gun happy, you just don't know what to do. I think that if we had some way that we could contact somebody that actually was going to do something as far as being treated fairly, the police stop being aggressive, people would stop being defensive. And that would make everything that much better for everybody. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Walter Jefferson. I've been assaulted by the police for 23 years in Memphis, Tennessee. I was with the Department of Justice, man, about 23 years, and you haven't did nothing about it. All because I sued Captain D for $700 million. The policeman assaulted me for 23 years. I don't know, Loretta Lynch, President Obama, nobody did nothing. Everybody turning their back against this problem. It took my rights away to have a lawyer. I ain't got no right to have a lawyer in Memphis, Tennessee right now. My Second Amendment right was violated. Right to bear arms. People took my weapon from me, registered my name, and didn't give me my weapon back at all. I got the right to bear arms. I got the right to have a lawyer. All these rights been taken away from me in Memphis, Tennessee. I want to know why these rights been taken away from me. Because I sued Captain D for $700 million, it ain't over with. I'm suing for $700 more million. Here you go, man. You take that to the bank.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Mr. Renard, law-abiding citizen, neighborhood watch. block captain, 3 streets south. We all heard of the police reactions. I think we all concur that the reactions are unwanted and reactions that shouldn't occur. Well, I'm here to try to work with the police department. When I call the police, and I call about once a week with illegal activities going on, and I'm asking you as citizens, don't be afraid to call in when you know something going on. Now, when I call in, they come to my house and shine the light on my house. I think it's done deliberately. Everybody in the neighborhood know, hey, that's the neighborhood block captain there. If you got any problems, that's who you need to deal with, you know. But I stand. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So I want to get something. When I get ready to leave this community, I want to be able to get something for my house. So I call the police, and I need to know, is the precinct here for just roll call and clocking out? Because I don't even see them come down my street. And I'm 3 streets over. I don't understand. Look like if you have roll call and you got a citizen that's calling every week about gang activity, the lieutenant or the sergeant that does the roll call would say, we need to patrol that neighborhood. We need to at least be seen on that street because it's been every week something going on. And these perpetrators are getting bold. I'm talking about shooting dice in the middle of the street off of Ridgeway. Who ever heard of that? I know in some neighborhoods further in the hood they do that, but I'm not ready to let my neighborhood go. And I'm trying to work with the Memphis Police Department. And I come down, walk my dog, and in the back of my fraternity brother's church, we got 3-4 cars just sitting there with the lights off for a substantial amount of time. I know because I'm doing my exercise about 2 hours. So if they on lunch, that's a long lunch. And I don't know what is it going to take for the police just to patrol the neighborhood. Is that too far-fetched? And for citizens, don't stop calling in. Just don't give me your name or your address, but don't stop calling in. Thank you.
My name is Catherine Shiloh. Can you hear me? Catherine, hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me?
There you go.
Okay. I would like to start by saying that I've had more positive experiences with the Memphis Police Department than negative, but it takes very little to damage trust in the community. Several years ago, I was with a girlfriend late in the evening downtown near Bill Street, and an officer approached the vehicle that we were in. My friend was driving, and I was a passenger. And we rolled down the window, or it was could have already been rolled down. And the officer started by shouting obscenities. No ticket was issued. No courtesy violation or anything like that. So what I would like to raise awareness about and what I take issue with is, yes, we have issues, we know, with de-escalation, but with officers inciting aggressive behavior and seemingly being the first to be aggressive.
Hang on just 1 second. Try a different mic again.
Hi. I've lived in the area for over 30 years, together with my 80-year-old mother and my 100-year-old grandmother. We're the caregivers for her. And we're concerned about the increasing crime and violence in our area. People are becoming more blatant. We call the police. They respond. Some officers are more respectful than others, and that concerns us. There was an incident April 19th of 2014, an assault from the young drug dealer next door. He called the police, my mother called the police. There was an altercation between them. The officer who came cited that it was mutual combat. because she hit him in self-defense. Mutual combat between a 23-year-old athlete and a 77-year-old woman. I'm a little frustrated, and she was too. We requested a report. We asked for a lieutenant to be called. No lieutenant was called. The report was given at our insistence. When the report was issued, it was different. When we spoke with the detective some months later, the report had been altered. I said, well, I think if this had happened, we would have addressed it. Nobody advised us of this. It states clearly in that report you're required to, you will hear, you can actually be updated along the process. Nobody contacted us. It's disheartening. There have been officers who have been extremely kind to us, but there have also been officers who've been extremely disrespectful. We're three people who have lived in the city all our lives. We've been taxpayers. We've been property owners. And you know, it's just unfortunate that when you make calls about your concerns in the neighborhood, that you're considered a nuisance. Some officers make it a point to let it be known that you are the person who's made those calls. Neighbors in turn who don't have the best intentions will in turn retaliate against you. So that's a big concern. What more can we do? We go through the process. There is nobody advocating for citizens. I've gotten an order of protection. I had to go to court. I work for an hourly wage, by the way. I had to go to court 5 times to get an order of protection. When that order of protection was to be renewed, it couldn't be renewed because the offender hadn't been served. Who's advocating for me? I'm floored. So I'm just a little frustrated. That's my spiel.
Really emotional last night because something about when you go into church, you know, it invokes certain types of emotions. I was kind of feeling some kind of way because y'all selected a church as a venue. Because if you didn't get my name, I am P. Moses, community activist, musician, mother, writer, founder of Black Lives Matter Memphis. And I felt some kind of way because if you look around Memphis, not this part of Memphis, but the Memphis I live in, there's 2 or 3 churches on every corner. And that says a lot about a city, you know, that has so many churches, but the same amount of problems that it had 10, 20 years ago. So I'm not a problem-oriented person, regardless of what the commercial appeal or WREG says about me. I'm solution-oriented. So tonight, I want to give you a couple solutions for the COPS program, which you're trying to implement here. The first one I recommend is a federal oversight task force or committee. I would personally like to be on the board or a chair of that committee and be allowed to select other people within the community that work in different fields other than law enforcement. Because sometimes when you have people in law enforcement looking after other folks in law enforcement, you never get anything done. I've had the same experiences as some people when you go to internal affairs. I'll give you an example. About 2013, I went up there with Miss Shirley Thompson, she's deceased now, to try to file a complaint on behalf of the way the murder of Justin Thompson was handled. And we were literally kidnapped and tried to be moved to another part of the building because it became a security issue because I walked in with her, a person who knows how to fill out a complaint and make sure that the complaint is thorough enough to get investigated. And before that complaint, we did eventually get it filed after I told him no, we wasn't going anywhere until her complaint got dictated. He was allowed to resign before they could actually even make a determination. So that's why, even though they have CLERB and things like that, I think there needs to be a federal oversight committee for Shelby County, which incorporates citizens who are able to not only look at the complaints or offer the complaints publicly, but a database is compiled where anyone who wants to know if Mr. Moore has a complaint can see it via the internet. I think that transparency is important. The next thing is, I think that when all complaints are filed, they should be public, regardless if they're not founded or not. A lot of times you have complaints that are filed, and because of, example with the judicial people, if a complaint is filed and it's not in, they determine that it's unfounded, then the complaint becomes confidential. So that judge could do something again, and you never know about it because the complaints and everything is made confidential. So I think we need more transparency. I also, as a solution-oriented person, would like to let you know that Black Lives Matter Memphis does do cultural and sensitivity training, and we would be happy to train some of your officers in how to deal with our people. Because if you cannot deal with your people, you're going to have a problem. And most of the time, the problems in Memphis come from lack of professionalism. And when people lack professionalism, you're going to have mistakes. If a person is professional, then you're going to have clarity. You're going to have communication. So I think that it's very important that whether you allow Black Lives Matter Memphis to offer cultural and sensitivity training on LGBT matters. There have been some officers that have taken transgender to the male housing because they don't recognize that their gender has been changed. And some of them have went through the process of even having their birth certificate changed or their license where their gender is reflective of something else. So your officers need to be taught how to treat those who are of different capacities, different genders, different races. With the Latino community, some of your officers don't even speak any Espanol. So we would like to, if you do offer those type of grants or things like that, we would like to personally train some of the officers in dealing with that. Also, the last suggestion I'm going to give you, and it extends past the police department. The district attorney and the Shelby County clerk is doing something real low down here. And I say low down because I say it matter-of-factly. The Shelby County grand jury is supposed to meet publicly, and any person who has knowledge of a crime is supposed to be able to present that information to the foreman. Well, the Shelby County clerk, Richard Desinger, does post that information by law, in which he's supposed to do. But when citizens go up there to try to report a crime that the police refuse to take their police report and to speak directly to the grand jury for presentment purposes in accordance with Tennessee state law, they are denied that right. So I also think that that federal oversight committee needs to monitor some of the actions of the district attorney, because our district attorney, in my personal and professional opinion, is a criminal. So if we could put some checks and balances into place to make sure that there is some type of oversight, I think we could work together as a community to be a better Memphis. And I hope that this information will be taken seriously regardless of your personal or professional beliefs that you have formulated about my personal situation. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
My name is Marcus. I'm just wondering if there wasn't cell phones with cameras on them, would we even be in this building right now? You know, why are we here, you know? I've heard different topics, things like economical structure, better structure, you know, social things. I can't see what the police can do about that, you know? But I do know that if I call the police because somebody was bothering me or my mom, I'm pretty sure the police officers would defend us. They would put their lives on the line. They would probably shoot somebody to keep them from shooting us. I agree with that. All cops are not bad, you know? But I'm talking about the ones that are bad. You know, I think it's a moral thing. Like the woman said, you know, who are they today? Where'd they come from, you know? Are they branches of the KKK, like she said, who has established over into law? You know? Who are they? You know, there's an issue that us in the inner cities is faced with. And when you look out here, you see this color. It's right here in our faces. This is what it is. This is what it is. A high crime area. Is there a law that says this is a high crime area at Parkway in Lauderdale, so everybody that comes outside must be pulled over in a car or searched, empty out your pockets, get against the car, give me your ID? Is that what you do in a high crime area? It affects everybody? Because a few of these people live in high crime areas and that's why they're here. Or they have relatives that do, and so on and so forth. For instance, just upholding the law as an officer would be a lot better than breaking the law to uphold the law. If I'm riding with a group of friends and my buddy is speeding and we get pulled over, the cop's going to say, hey, let me see your ID. His partner's going to come over and says to everybody in the car, let me see your ID, and your ID too. As a matter of fact, get out of the car and empty out your pockets. You know what I'm saying? So he was speeding, so does that apply to all of us too? That's what happens here. It goes on every day. Every day it goes on. Racial profiling, stereotyping people. Look at me. Look at my hair. Look at what I have on. Does that make me a criminal? Nah. No, I don't. It's just the way that I look. It's not accepted. So how can we get officers to look past what I'm wearing? You know? That's what we need. We need more morals in the police department of Memphis, you know? I'll be honest with you, I'm not, you know, I'm a criminal. I broke the law. I've been to jail. I got felonies, you know? I remember once when I got pulled over because I had a window let down. I had a driver's license, but the window was down. The officer says, we pulled you over because we thought your car was stolen. The keys were in the ignition, okay? Show him a license. What you got in the car? What does it matter? Turn around, get into my car, and he searched my car and he found a gun, a 9mm revolver. And he was saying things like, oh, I've never seen a gun like this before. And so I cracked the joke. I was like, well, hey, you can have it, just let me go. You know what he said to me? It was a white officer. He said, my grandfather would roll over in his grave if I did that. You know, I thought about that, and he meant business. So we're talking about the morals and the reasoning as to why they are police officers, why they are here, and why is it all of this color in this room? We know why it is. Because we got bad police officers that need to be, you know, screened more, evaluated or something. I remember once I was in a club on Bill Street and sitting at the bar, and me and this officer had a disagreement, and he says, just get out of the club. I thought that was unfair. So I says, you know what? I gotta report this. I leave out, I go down to the police precinct on Bill Street. As I'm trying to report it, he comes in, and his friend said, hey, here's your man. And they locked me up and put me in jail. I didn't break one law. I just tried to report the officer for putting me out the club. Things like this. And I'm speaking for me. I'm not talking about the other thousands and thousands and thousands of black men who goes through this every day because of where they live and the color of their skin and how they wear their hair. I remember once I got pulled over by the cops and they found a gun on me then. I became afraid. I tried to run and they caught me. And they beat me up until the pacifier says, "Get off of that child." And they stopped and they hogtied me. And it was on the scene of a fire. So they drove in between the fire trucks and the paramedic vehicles. And they placed me in the center of them. And they took turns beating me in my head and my face with walkie-talkies and fists. And one white officer told me, "If you drop 1 ounce of blood in this car, we're gonna kick your blood." And you know what? The blood ran down. I couldn't hold it no more. And he smacked me in my mouth with his walkie-talkie again. You know, things like that. This happens. This happens a lot. An awful lot, you know? I'm just gonna say this, because I'm gonna cut it off, man. You know, you guys, you know, all police are not, you know, bad people. I agree. You know, it's like they want to contest the gangbangers and stuff like that. Well, some police officers act like they are gangbangers too. Here we go again to the moral thing, to think about it again. You know, and everybody in here did not just wake up and say, "I don't like the police." For every cause, there's an effect. So I just suggest that be careful who you put on to your police force. Some of these officers are not here to protect and serve. They're here to serve.
Thank you. I'm going to be brief because I don't have much time, but and I know my executive director already spoke, Brad Watkins. My name is Paul Garner. I'm with the Mid-South Peace and Justice Center. I've been working around criminal justice reform since about 2012 when I started working with homeless organizing for power and equality. And about as soon as we started having weekly meetings, we experienced ongoing police harassment and began doing Know Your Rights workshops with some help from some kind folks at the Public Defender's Office. But I just want to talk about not individual officers, but NPD as an institution and what I've experienced over the last several years. And I would say I'm really glad that the DOJ is in town, but it's really hard to have any expectation for anything other than accountability theater at this point after working tirelessly over the last several years for just minimal police accountability and reform. We worked on the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board campaign. The Police Association president as well as the director were our biggest obstacles to even, again, minimal reform, something that's been touted as something that can improve community police relations again and again and again across this country. We have one in Chattanooga that's been around since 1994 with full access to internal affairs databases. Here, the NPD won't even release their departmental regulations to the public. And the internal affairs process is a joke, frankly. People go there, they have no idea how to navigate that process. They never hear back. And we work with people case after case after case that I hear the same damn story, and it's sickening, honestly. And it's hard to give people hope in this town that things are going to change when even with the change of a director, I just yesterday I volunteered with the Fight for 15 workers, and I drove a van, and I was followed around by 4 squad cars for an hour and a half. I drove in a parking lot, and I just drove around in circles, and they just drove around in circles with me. I mean, it was Keystone Cops. It was crazy. And these are the things that they will expend resources on. The day before, when there was massive storms and power outages, and we had down power lines and lights out with wrecks, I didn't see a single officer directing traffic. But they had enough time and resources to direct people to, and I'm saying this is not a problem with these individual officers necessarily. I think there is a lot of that, but the institution itself, the way it functions, the way it doesn't function toward the needs of the community, the way the police are used to deal with poverty frankly, because our mayor and our city council have never addressed these things substantively. And this new C3 plan, or whatever they call it, 3.0 plan, I mean, that's not going to be anything for 2 more years until the mayor runs for re-election. You know, I don't know what that's going to change either, because we're going to have to wait 2 years to find out if they're actually going to implement. So I would just say that if you want to change anything while you're here, you're going to have to spend some time, and you're going to have to reach out to some of the many organizations that have been working on the ground to heal the wounds between law enforcement and community, despite the department's unwillingness to change systemically. And so we can have all these group efforts to try to improve individual relationships with officers, which is great and laudable, but until the institution is willing to actually change, I don't see anything happening. So anyway, thank you all for your time.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Miller. I grew up in South Memphis. I'm also I've served 14 years. I'm a Navy veteran. I don't have any bad stories to say about the police here in Memphis. I really don't. I don't have any. I've lived in San Diego. I've lived in Dallas for 14 years, and I moved back home about in 2014 after my son graduated from school. But I do have a son. He lives in Dallas, Texas. What I would like to see, since you are the United States Department of Justice, is basically in the military we all were one organization. We had standard operating procedures that we all, each branch, had to follow. And I just feel that city by city, state by state, anyone, I mean, I feel like we have different cities, I'm a little nervous, different cities, different states abiding by their own governing rules, when I feel like the police departments nationwide should be governed under the same operating procedures, their first responders, just as the military's first responders. And so we should all have standard operating procedures that we all follow, nation, state by state, and it should be the same thing across the board. Also in the hiring procedures, it should be the same, that you should have standard hiring procedures for each cop. If a cop is acquitted in a case, a cop can move to another city and be rehired. That shouldn't be. But if there's standard operating procedures, standard hiring procedures, then that would be eliminated. Like I said, I don't have any bad stories, but I will say this. I do know from serving, I served 14 years out of 20, got out just to raise my son, instead of him coming back to South Memphis while I go overseas. To say that is, most of our police department, a good majority of them, and fire department, are prior military. A lot of them have served state by state, have served in 9/11, Afghanistan several times. We all know, just being a veteran, that we've heard our horror stories from the VA, that we're not getting ample enough mental health. I honestly believe that part of the problem is most of these officers are suffering from PTSD. They're not, which if you're part of your hiring procedures, if it's done correctly, you will know these type of things because you can pull their records from VA. And I just think that we need better hiring procedures, we need better standard operating procedures, and it needs to be uniform throughout the United States instead of letting cities and states govern them within themselves. That's it.
My name is Sharon Davis, and the issue that I have in the neighborhood, I stay in the Hickory Hill area. I've been here 3 years over this side, but I was in an apartment before I moved here. I ain't had no problems in an apartment, sir. But I come home one morning, my son told me, they called me on the phone, said my house had been kicked in. My doors had been kicked in. They took all my TVs, computers. They took money out of my drawers in my bedroom. I mean, they vandalized my house. The police, the first thing they done, they came. When my son said he got back there, the police was there. He had called them to come out there. But the people that stayed across the street that broke in my house at the time, it was like 20 or 30 folks staying in these houses. Okay, why is the police ain't doing nothing about all these Section 8 folks Hey ladies, goggles or people see in the house, okay? I got a problem now. There's a lot of drugs in the neighborhood. There's a little boy not too long ago, a couple months ago, I don't know if y'all know about it, the little boy that was 16 years old or 14 years old that got killed on our street. They found a body. A young girl found a body. She was looking at a house. They found this little boy in the backyard in a shed, dead. Okay, this little boy, 3 or 4 days before that happened, I had asked him to get off my walkway. Don't stand in front of my door because my neighbor across the street house had got broken in. So the neighbor came over there to my house and asked me, was that my son? I told him, no, I don't have no small teenager, because I know he was about a teenager, about 14 or 15 years old. It happened about maybe 4 months ago. This little boy was shot to death. Don't know about that. We ain't found out who shot him or what. I haven't heard no shots. I stay up late at night. I go to my door maybe 4, maybe 5 times a night. You see the little black gentleman walking the street. Ain't no police officers patrolling our street. Raintree, I don't even see no police officers come down that street. The day my house got broke in, about 3 or 4 other houses got broke in. Was it none of the people's house that got broke in or none of us at home? I leave my house like 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't return to my house until 5 o'clock in the evening. All I want is the police to patrol the streets to make sure our houses are safe. I mean, this is ridiculous. I can see them out on the street in the parking lot sitting there coding. I ain't paying no taxes for all of that. And I think it's unfair. There's nothing being done about it. I don't know how to call no police. I came all the way up to the precinct. And I told the lady, I said, this little boy walking up and down the street, 11, 12, and 1 o'clock. The lady told me, she said, well, I sent an officer around there patrol, okay? I stayed up to 3 o'clock in the morning, sir. I didn't see no car nowhere. I was standing in my door, and I had to be to work at 4 o'clock in the morning. I shouldn't have to do all that. So I told the little boy, I went out there in my nightgown, and I had my gun on me. I ain't gonna tell you no lie. I'm licensed to carry, and I'm gonna carry as long as I'm licensed. And I told him, I said, you need to get away from me in front of my door. He was sitting out there playing a game like Pac-Man or whatever you call it, and he walking all up and down the street. I don't know what that child might have been doing to me that night, but I took a chance of going out there. That little boy cussed me out. 3 days later, he was dead. You hear me? The police officer asked me, he said, ma'am, can you describe this child? I described the child to a T. I told him what he looked like. I told him, I said, that ain't no gentleman. That's a 14 or 15-year-old child. Now, this child is dead. They ain't never came back and told us who killed him or what happened. But what I know, he didn't have no mother. And he stayed about maybe 8 or 9 doors down from us. And I had never seen him. Every night, he would come out there and walk the street. So I'm asking for the police officers to start patrolling the streets. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dolores, and I would just like to talk about an incident that I experienced with the police, and it was a couple of years ago. The police was called on me, and I'm not going to go into all of the details, but anyway, it ended up I was arrested. I had never been arrested in my life, and when I was put in the car, and I'm trying to figure out why, and they don't know why. They just say I'm under arrest. And I said, well, don't you have to have some kind of charges? And she's like, EMF, we don't have to have anything. We the law. We do what we want to do. And I was called all kind of EMFs and bitches and whores. And I could deal with the bitches and the whores, but I absolutely was not EMF because I know where that name originated, okay? So I definitely was not one of those. But I was taken to jail east, and about halfway there, well, before we got there, this officer was constantly threatening me,
said she'll take me to the woods and beat me and whatever, whatever. And I said, well, you need to tell me why you arrested me. And she said, bitch, I don't know yet. So she said, I'm calling my lieutenant. And so she called him and she said, we have this lady we want to arrest, but she haven't done anything, we just don't like her. What reason can we put on here to arrest her? The lieutenant said, well, you can always arrest anybody for disorderly conduct. So they wrote that on there and they took me to jail. And the next morning, I had to go to court, and I was prepared to get an attorney or whatever I needed, but when I guess it was maybe the prosecutor or somebody standing with the judge, and he told her, we're not going to pursue this, just let her go. But is that a law that you can always charge anybody for disorderly conduct? Is that the law of Tennessee or the nation, or what is that? Does anybody know? Can I have an answer now, or do you know? No one knows? All right. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, I would say I don't have an answer for you now, but I'll seek to get the information that you need.
I would appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do have good police officers. I know we have some bad ones out there. And each time, I think if the colonel would listen to the men as they're talking, and if they hear that any of them are a little bully, pull them aside, talk to them. If they don't straighten up, don't send them home. Just go home and sit it out for a while. But take their money away from them. They'll learn real quickly how to come back to be better. And if they are abusing to any of their wives, they will be abusive to the public. But now what I would like to say to everybody here, if we have 9 precincts here in this community, in this Memphis. The last Monday night of each month, except for November and December, we have a neighborhood watch meeting. Everyone should come out to that meeting. You can sit there, you can tell the colonel, he gets up there and gives us a breakdown where the crime is being, what they're doing about it, and what they're trying to get corrected for us. And we are supposed to be eyes and ears for our police department. And that we can help them immensely by doing this. And when you have a crime, everybody in my code knows if I see something going wrong, I do call the police. And they do come out. But they're afraid to go. Why? A lot of them just don't come because they don't have time, they don't want to come. But if you would come to each of these meetings and listen to the colonel, he will give you the breakdown. And if you have any problems, he does listen to you. And he will tell you right then and there, if I cannot correct this problem, you give me your name, your address, and I will see an officer comes out there and talks to you and try to get this corrected. So I'm asking each and every one of us to be eyes and ears for our police department. Please, please come to these meetings, because the police departments, they need our backing. And they do need for us to tell them when we see them out here on the street, officer, you know what, I'm so glad you're here. We need to ask each and every one of us, if we do not have these police officers out here on the street, what in the world would the crime be like? We wouldn't come out of our house then. So I'm just asking everybody to please work with the police department. I know there's a lot of bad issues, but if we have patience and we listen to them and we try to help them, and then we also try to teach our children, if they get stopped, they'll start fighting or running. Just be calm and say, what's the problem? Don't fight back with them. We've got courts that can settle that for them. You can take your children to court, so don't tell them to run or to argue with. Please don't argue with the policeman. Just listen to them. And if you don't like what you hear, take it to the judge. That's what they're there for. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, please come up.
Excuse my shoe.
No, it's okay, thank you.
Good evening, my name is Betsy Spring. I was not going to speak, but I think it's important to voice my concern. I have grown up in Memphis, and I grew up in South Memphis. I now live in Cordova. I will say that currently Memphis's brand with the police department is about as consistent as McDonald's. Depending on what part of town you go to McDonald's, your experience at the McDonald's is going to be different. The quality of the food may be different, the quality of the service may be different, but it's not consistent, even though the name on the building is the same. My experience in Cordova has been very different from my experience in South Memphis, or in, say again? And what's important to note is, just from a branding perspective, one thing that's different for consumers when they spend more money at Chick-fil-A versus going to McDonald's, we count on the same experience at every Chick-fil-A, no matter what Chick-fil-A I go to in Memphis. I know that my food is going to be hot, it's going to be fresh, I'm going to pay the same thing, the person is always going to have a smile, they're going to ask and take the orders the same way. And that's my prayer, my hope for the Memphis Police Department. Not because one zip code pays more in taxes than another, but because it's essential that the brand is consistent to provide the consumers, our citizens of Memphis, the same quality of service, whether we live in 38016 or 38106. And that is very essential to just note. And I was going to leave, but I'm thankful that I just said that. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.